Hey everybody. Okay, so the next key thing that you need to do to ensure that you have a profitable business, whether you are due to open one or whether you are existingly have one, is keep this one critical message that I talk about. And this critical message that you need to have in your mind the whole time and be constantly, every single day, putting it into the minds of your staff is to keep going out round the counter and view things from customer eyes. Now we've talked about this many times before. I think it's covered in both books, but I cannot emphasize just how important this is, because one of the problems that you have is when you start up a business, you arrive in with this concept in your mind of this great product that you're going to create, whether that's coffee or fast food or whatever it is, or the food that you're going to create. It's going to be wonderful. The service is going to be wonderful. You know all of these things that will have annoyed you and irritated you as you've visited businesses in the past. So you're very good. Your only perception at that stage is through customer eyes. But within about a week, you start to lose the ability to see things from the customer's eyes. So what you do is you start to just look at all of this operational stuff. You don't keep seeing things from the customer eyes. So what you have to do is keep trying to put yourself back into that state that you were in before you opened, with the level of dissatisfaction that you had and the critical eyes that you had before you opened, because you stop losing that and you start becoming very defensive of your own product. Now there are two basic rules behind this. The first rule is brutal honesty. And as I say, that's because people lose that ability to be objective about their own product very, very quickly. What you cannot do is allow that to happen, and you cannot allow your staff to let that happen. So you need to be brutally honest about the service that the customer is getting, about the general cleanliness of what's going on in your business, about the quality of the product that you're offering them, whether it's food or drink. And you must be very, very super critical about this. And that means not listening to all of the praise that you might get through comment cards or from friends and family, but paying immensely close attention to any critical comments that you might get from customers or staff or ex-staff or friends and family who are prepared to be open and honest to you. So you need to be very, very honest with yourself and with your staff, because what staff will do is they'll start to tend to try and they think that it's a good thing to do to defend you. They think that it's a good thing to do to sort of create this aura around you, and you mustn't allow that to happen. If there is an issue in the business, don't try and come up with excuses for why that's happened. Don't try and excuse it away. Face it head on and deal with it. Absolutely, fundamentally deal with it. So is your product good enough? Is the food good enough? Is your coffee good enough? Absolutely, hand on heart, can you say that it is as good as you intended to do before you opened? Now, the problem why I drum that through so much is we see so often as we meander our way around the countryside, consulting and working with various food businesses and hospitality businesses in different forms, we find that so many people have lost that brutal, critical honesty about their own business. That's why I go on about that so much. So the second rule is that everything matters. Again, that's kind of like one of those trite consultancy terms. I don't really want to keep coming out with those. But what I mean by that is when you are out at the front, as I say, the front in your business and viewing it with these critical customer eyes, you sort of need to think not just about the things that matter to you. So people, if you come from a food background, you have a tendency to go out there and look at maybe just how the food's presented and taste the food. Or if you're come from very much a coffee background, then you'll go out and you'll be much more focused in on the coffee. Or if you come from a front of house background in a restaurant scenario, you'll tend to look at the service as opposed to the food. So what you've got to do is give yourself a list. I can't create the list for your business because every business is different. But you need to create this list of things on paper to begin with, and then subsequently just that you run through in your mind. And one of the good ways that I find to do that is to try and just deal with the five senses. So what you're going out there is you're going out and viewing things from a customer perspective. Well, taste is obviously the first one, the most obvious one. You've got to make sure that you're tasting everything, that all your staff have tasted everything, and that it is to the right standard. So the whole looking through customers' eyes thing is important, but don't get caught up too much in the eyes part of it. The second thing, obviously, is the smell. And what people tend to forget is that when you're sitting down in a restaurant, coffee shop, or wherever, any form of hospitality business, that a lot of the smells that we think are okay are not so okay to the customer. So one of the key things that happens certainly in coffee shops is that a lot of savoury food produced removes a lot of that classic coffee smell and sort of baked goods smell, which is much more appealing. It depends on your model hugely what these smells are. But be very wary, for example, of having soup on very early on in the day, which will remove all of that coffee and baked goods smell that you want to have in the morning. The smell is very, very important in food businesses in terms of turning customers on to what you do in terms of buying and turning them off if you get it wrong. So the third thing is touch. We all know that if you go into coffee shops, restaurants, and that sort of greasy thing on a counter or on tables or chewing gum or any of those. So think about all the things. Think about all the places that the customer will touch on their way through. And, obviously the classic one is toilets and so on. The perception of cleanliness through what they touch is incredibly important. And you need to be thinking about that all the time yourself and getting your staff to think along those lines. So the fourth one is sound. Sound's a very big issue because what often happens is that, it goes way beyond music. But what often happens is that you have kitchens making all sorts of sounds that are very unappealing to the customer. Dishwash sounds, shouting chefs. There are lots of sounds that go on in businesses. One of the classic ones that sometimes happens is that people have a sort of a doorbell ringing mechanism that comes on when people open the door. That's absolutely infuriating to a customer. So sit down and listen to the sounds of your business and see how they would affect you if you were not the owner, if you were this dispassionate customer. So the final one is sight, and that's obviously all of those things that you look at that the customer will see. Now make your own lists up, but it's useful to put it into those senses, because that's the way the customer will be perceiving all of these things that go on in your business. So it's a lot more than taste, it's a lot more than what they see, it's this overall package, and you need to be out, if you're working on a reasonably hands-on basis, you need to be out the front and viewing that business, your business, through customers' eyes as regularly as you possibly can. One of the other things, let's say you've several sites, what people very often do is they nip in the back door to visit that business. They don't come through the front and walk through and think like a customer the whole way through. Really, really crucial discipline, that when you visit your business, you visit it as if you were a customer, not as if you were the manager or the boss. So get a structure around that. Get a coordinated, orchestrated structure around the way that you visit your business, and a coordinated, orchestrated structure about the way that your staff go out and view it from the customer's perspective. And when I say orchestrated, I mean that has to come out, it has to be systematic. They have to come out at regular times during the day, and they probably have to fill out some sort of form. They need to have viewed it in those ways. Don't leave this thing to chance. So that's the second key thing, and as I say, I really cannot emphasize enough how important it is. So view the business every day through customer eyes. That's the critical message that you must have in your business. Thank you.